And this for some people is probably going to sound a little bit strange, but lesson number two is I'm going to die. And before you know, you say to me, "Thanks for thanks for pointing out the uber obvious, Ben." It's something that been thinking a lot about recently is death. And to some people that might sound morbid, but there's a lot of research that goes into individuals who think about death and how enlightening it can be to life. Because I guess it makes you think about, do you know what, there is an end in sight, and it's life is not infinite, it's finite. And that for me helps me live a more fulfilled life now, because I know I've got a limited amount of time to live. It would be like, imagine living up to your 150th birthday and getting 150 candles out and blowing them out for the 150th time. It'd just be like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right this year. Don't give me a birthday cake. I've had enough of it. I think that'd start to be the case with life as well. So I'm not scared of it. I think it helps you enjoy those occasions and those occurrences, and helps you pause and think about life a little bit, like I'm doing right now. And the thing that got me thinking about this, I read a book when I was in Australia, because I came over here in December of last year and stayed here till March. I booked 2 weeks and ended up staying for 3 months. Had a great time. Did a lot of soul searching, did a lot of reading. I read this book on masculinity, which is obviously a lot of talk about at the moment. And one of the great quotes, which I've actually written down, and it really struck me, was, "Every man dies, but not every man lives." Hit me that one. And it's because people can spend a lot of time worried about death and not being present, not being here, which again is about being content and being grateful for things that we have right now. And you just end up being dead before you even die, which is a crazy thing to think. I think there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who go through that. The walking dead, which I think is even worse than death itself. And it's something that really got me thinking about how I spend each day and how I can be grateful and have gratitude for things that maybe in the past I've taken for granted. And to say, we need to fit into a certain pigeonhole or live life under the radar or just, survive is really difficult. And this was one of the topics I looked into last year. I know one of a good friend of mine just spoke about this quite a lot. And it's that point in life that a lot of people fall into of, and I've been there before with jobs and friendships and relationships where I've been doing something, but the job wasn't bad enough for me to quit. The relationship was just shitty enough for me to stay in it. And this isn't talking about my previous relationship. This is talking about many moons ago. The friendship was kind of okay, but wasn't great. Where I was living was all right, but wasn't great. I think a lot of people exist within that small zone, and this is where it's often better if life obviously is either really good and really great, or it's really shit. Because the worse that something is, the more chance there is of you changing something. The more painful something is, the more chance that you're going to get up and change something today. But if it's just like bad enough, you're probably going to just continue to mull your way through it. You're going to continue to sludge through the mud. And that is difficult to be self-aware of. And something that I want you to think about today. And you can grow from these things. You can move on from these things. And, you can't expect to grow unless you move from those relationships and you move from those friendships, because otherwise you're just existence and you're just passing time when, time is super precious, and it's such a dangerous thing if you're in that place. And one of the things I've also been super, super mindful of within this space, and I think people do it online quite a lot within the podcast space and the self-development space on Instagram or social media. It's, just quit the job, just leave the relationship. And I think that can be really, really toxic advice, because you shouldn't be given advice if you wouldn't apply it to yourself. That's a logic that I like to live by now when I'm giving people advice, because you could give some advice which could completely just trolley their whole life, seriously harming someone. And this was kind of driven home again by, I listened to, if anyone's not read the book, or even better actually, not downloaded the Audible version of Let Them by Mel Robbins. Wow. So that's some book. She's a great speaker as well. I love Mel Robbins. I've listened to her for a long time, but she was speaking to, I don't know if it was her husband that was on the podcast or whether it was somebody else, but she was talking about how they went through a certain rough patch. And she was saying about sometimes there's going to be people in lifeboats or rafts who are going to come up next to your boat with you and your partner in, and they're going to tell you things, they're going to advise you things, they're going to try and pull you out of the boat and onto the raft. And sometimes you've got to stay in the boat. You've got to stay in the boat, weather the storm, and you got to communicate. And I think that's where she was talking about, you've got to be careful about the people around you who are in those rafts, the people who are trying to pull you and save you, but are they really trying to save you? Or are they trying to pull you down? Because people don't really want you to be the best version of you. They just want you to be the version of you that best serves them. And that's just an honest opinion for a lot of people until you realize it. So it's just something you've got to be careful about. I mean, on this topic of death, I haven't thought about exactly how I want to die, but I probably want to be in my own bed. I probably want to be in a pair of slippers. I don't really want to be in one of those hospital beds because they're just greedy. How many lives of a hospital bed taken? I preferably want to be in my own bed. And I don't want to be around a plethora of dead bodies, preferably. So I'd also would like to have a pregnancy pillow. I really like sleeping with something between my legs. So if I'm going to die, whoever's there, I'd like a pregnancy pillow. But in a shirt, party up top, no, smart up top, party downstairs. So nothing on downstairs. Probably watching Match of the Day, maybe Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. But in all seriousness, I probably want my family around me. I probably want the people who I respect, love, and care for, and be rich in memories. Because there's one thing I've learned over the past few months is that the term forever is a phrase that was meant for memories, not people. And I think once you come to terms with that, it makes life a lot easier to deal with. And it also makes life a journey and a vessel of where you pick things up, you pick up memories, you pick up lessons. And that is something that I'd want to share with family in my last dying hours. So I don't know how I'd want to die. Probably at old age. Probably not leathered in my own shit. Probably still healthy, hygienic, and got control of my bowels. So that would be the preferences. But yeah, I think if death had taught me one lesson, then it's that time is finite and it's valuable.